We now go to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Lawler, who is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, to the best of my knowledge, the last public meeting between you and President Biden occurred on May 31st, 2022. Does that sound accurate?
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay. Have you had any private meetings with the president since that time?
No.
Any phone calls with the president?
Nope. I don't believe so.
Is there any reason why you've not met with or spoken to the president?
I meet with when any president calls you, you come and you meet, but that hasn't happened.
So in over 2 years, with inflation still nagging us, with cost out of control, President Biden has not asked to meet with you in over 2 years?
I haven't had a meeting with him. He hasn't sought a meeting, and of course I don't seek meetings. So you have the date.
But to your knowledge, in the last 2 years, you've not spoken with or met with the president at all?
He shook his hand in a line once, but that wasn't a conversation. It was just, Mr. President, and that was it. It was at a state dinner. I attended a state dinner a few months ago, and I shook his hand. Good evening, Mr. President, and that was it.
Does that not strike you as odd that the president has not sought to meet with you?
Not at all. Not at all. We're an
Mr.
independent
Chairman.
agency, and
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry, please, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
Am I
sorry.
recognized?
I want to answer your.
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a point of order under Clause 4 of Rule 17 that the gentleman's words are disorderly and violate the rules of decorum in debate insofar as they are negatively reflecting upon the personality of a candidate for President of the United States.
The congressman is not engaged in any personality or in any, has questioned anything about anyone at this point. I'm not sure where you're going, Congressman. Congressman is recognized.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
Happy to answer your question.
Mr. Chairman.
Answer your question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Not at all
continue with the
unusual.
point of order, please.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Chairman, we have been admonished in this committee that we should not have words that negatively reflect upon persons who are running for president. This would include Mr. Trump as well as the current president.
Didn't the ranking member do a whole opening monologue
Chairman,
diatribe about some
Would
ridiculous
you
Project
please rule my
2025?
friend out of order, Mr. Chairman, until you rule?
Mr. Lawler
he's
has
already
not
ruled.
admonished or said anything negative about the president at all. I just listened to his comments. So I'm going to recognize the congressman again, Mr. Lawler from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Powell, you were trying to answer my question.
So we're an independent agency. The administration has been very respectful of the Fed and not, wanting to try to influence and things like that. And I don't find it at all unusual. I've been at the Fed this is my 13th year, and I think there can go by long periods of time when the Fed chair doesn't meet with the president, and that's totally fine.
Okay. Since you made mention of the independence of the Fed, and I know you pride yourself in that independence, do you acknowledge, or do members of the FOMC acknowledge, that a rate cut in September could be viewed as political just 30 to 60 days before an election?
So our undertaking is to make decisions when and as they need to be made based on the data, the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks, and not in consideration of other factors, and that would include political factors. We will make those decisions. We have a long history of doing that, including during election years, and that is the undertaking we'll make. Anything we do will be very well grounded, and it's just not appropriate for us to get into the business of thinking about election cycles at all, one way or the other.
So inflation year over year from May 2024 to from May 2023 to May 2024 is up 3.3%. Overall inflation. Energy inflation is up 3.7%. Food inflation up 2.1%. with inflation continuing to be a challenge, do you see a rate cut as a possibility at this moment?
So I think you're quoting the CPI numbers, which are operating at an unusually high gap to the PCE. For 25 years, the Fed has focused on personal consumption expenditures inflation, PCE inflation. And usually the gap to CPI is only 25 or 30 basis points. It's more now. So the PCE numbers, the current PCE numbers are 2.6% for headline, 2.6% for core. And we've articulated for a good long period our test for being willing to consider beginning to loosen policy. And that test is that we want to be more confident that inflation is moving on a path sustainably down to 2%. Not at 2%, but on a path sustainably to 2%. That's the test we've articulated. I have some confidence, as I said earlier, that we are on a downward path. I think if you look at the data, it's pretty clear that, but we have not said, though, that we have sufficient confidence, and that will be a decision that our committee makes.
Yeah, I would just note, obviously, CPI, the price of goods, the price of purchasing a home, the price of a mortgage, the cost of a mortgage has been astronomical. In Westchester County, for instance, where I represent, the average mortgage cost is up $1,000 a month, over $12,000 a year. In the time I have remaining, quick question. In your meetings with the president, have you noticed any mental or cognitive decline?
No.
Thank you. I yield back.
Point of order.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from
Point of order,
Texas.
Mr. Chairman.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman just mentioned the president's cognitive capacity, and I believe this to be a violation of the rules with relationship to decorum, and that this goes into a personality of a president.
Gentleman's time had expired. You're recognized now for your 5 minutes, Mr. Green.
My point of order is to be made immediately after the gentleman's statement, and that's what I'm doing.
I would remind members not to engage in personalities and comments about the president.
But, Mr. Chairman, if I may, with my point of order, I demand that the gentleman's words be taken down insofar as they negatively reflect upon a candidate for President of the United States.
Gentleman from New York, Mr. Lawler, is recognized.
I'll happily withdraw my words, though everybody understood them.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman withdraws his comments.
I find
Mr. Green,
his
you're
final,
recognized.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, his final comment was, although everybody understood them, in my opinion, that then brings us right back to where we were before he made his attempt to withdraw. Now, if he's willing to withdraw appropriately, I will not demand. But until he does so, I demand that his words be taken down.
The gentleman's time had expired.
Mr. Chairman, the time does not expire on the request that I've made, the point of order. The time didn't expire on that.
I recognize
Let
Mr.
the
Lawler.
record reflect I withdraw my words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.